Okay, so as you know, we've been helping dealers buy and sell their frontline aged used inventory for just about 9 years. And a little over 4 years ago, they started asking us for help with their wholesale units. So we started a second site that I want to show you in just a moment. As you know, we are doing something that no other auction is doing. We are selling cars as is by you, but guaranteed as described by us. And I want to give you an example of how if you just change your process, the huge impact it'll have not just on you and your website. Now, let me explain how we're different than any other auction walking in here. We send out ASE certified mechanics right to your lot to do inspections. They do full CRs on the cars. They test drive them through all the gears. They pull any engine codes. They check the IM monitors. They also look for water in the oil and any oil in your radiator. They're going to spend about 40 minutes taking 20 to 30 pictures. They're going to paint meter all the panels as well. And then they upload all this information to our site. And our auction runs on Mondays from 2 to 5 p.m. We have about 2,500 registered buyers, and we're running about 1,500 trades per week. Okay, now let me just ask you a few questions here. Do you get paid on the wholesale profit? Okay, great. And where do you currently run your cars now? Okay. Are you currently running them as is or green light or a combination of both? Okay, good. So let me give you the example here. Let's say, for example, we have two BMWs that are identical. They're 2013s with over 100,000 miles. They've got check engine lights on. Now, you know that these are typically high-risk units for independent dealers to bid on. Typically, you'll have anywhere from 5 to 10 guys surrounding your cars at the auction, and it's very hard to get simulcast participation on these cars. Less than 4% of cars sold as is are bought by the online bidders, and that's simply because they can't see the blue smoke coming out of the back. They can't hear if it's making any noise in the engine. So if both of these cars run the lane, let's say that MMR is about $7,000. As is, these cars might bring $5,500, and that's just because the bidders can't tell if there's any difference. They have no idea what's wrong. They can't drive them. They can't bring their scanners in. But with CarWave, it's a much different story. Let's say this first car has a bad transmission. Let's say the engine's got a slight knock. Let's say the AC is blowing warm. This car is going to do terrible. It might only bring $4,000. So we want this car to stay right where it is, run through the lane. Hopefully a bidder will put his hand up and make a mistake on this unit. Now, the second unit here, it drives great. Let's say the engine code is just an O2 sensor, which is a quick fix. Let's say the AC is blowing cold. This car has life. And when we broadcast this life to our 2,500 buyers, more can participate and more will bid on this car than just the 5 or 10 guys in lane bidding on the cars as is. Because when we broadcast this life to our buyers, this car now might bring $7,500 or $8,000. When we reduce the risk to the buyers, they can pay much more for your car. So another thing is when we open the closet door, when we show them all the skeletons, now our bidders have the confidence to step up on this car because they have an idea of what it's going to take to fix the car. We stand behind every car that we inspect and everything we say about the car. So this is going to help those bidders in California and now Arizona and Nevada have the confidence to bid. So the cars are being sold as is from you, but guaranteed by us. And that's a huge fundamental difference than any other auction. Last year, CarWave spent $1.3 million on arbitrations, and the sellers didn't spend a dime. And that difference translates to more money for you and your store. All right. Now, I would suggest that the world's going online, and I think you'd agree that this is the evolution of how wholesale trades are going to be sold in the future, correct? Great. Now, I think you would also agree that it's much more efficient for a car to go straight to the buyer and not have to stop at an auction house, unnecessary transportation costs, etc. Also, imagine if you're an independent dealer, wouldn't you rather look at 1,500 units that have ASC certified reports from the comfort of your laptop or the comfort of your office or your home, instead of having to go to the auction and waste a half of a day looking at cars that you don't know which ones have the problem? right? Okay, so some of the side benefits of the online auction are you don't have any selfies, there's no inspection fees. You also don't have to worry about any bad run numbers or lane placement. There's no lot damage, there's no tampering with the cars like stolen parts or any sabotage, okay? So now let me go ahead and take you to our site. I want to log you in here. Let's take a look here at the watch list. Let's click and see what some of these cars did last week, okay? Let me scroll down here and just pick one of these cars. Let's start with this '05 Jeep. Now, help me, imagine you're taking this car in here. Help me put a number on this car. Give it a second here to load. All right, so we want to appraise this vehicle. And we got an '05 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon with 91,000 miles, okay? So let's take a quick look at the additional photos. Looks like this has a chipped quarter panel. This has a chipped front door, chipped fender on the right, scratch on the quarter panel, has a chip on the fender. It's got a chip on the front door. The back bumper is faded, chipped windshield, okay? It's also got a chip on the hood, peeling quarter panel, chip in the grill. The front seat is worn out. The right passenger seat is worn out and stained. The steering wheel is worn out. The console has a rip as well, okay? So let's go ahead and look through here. But look, there's no frame damage. It drives well. The engine's good. There's no codes. It does have a monitor for the oxygen sensor, but all these other green check marks will help you digest our 40-minute inspection in under a minute, okay? These are the exterior pictures we just looked at. It doesn't have any prior paint work. It looks like it needs a couple of tires there. The interior photos we saw, no dash lights, it's got keys, and no odors, okay? So this car books at $12,000. What would you take this car in for? About $9,000, okay. And if you were to send it down to the auction, what would you expect to get for it, or what would you be happy with? About 10 grand, fair enough. Let's see what this car sold for. Just give it a second here to load up. This car sold for $13,400, okay? Now, let's take a look at another one here. Yeah, because, well, when we broadcast the life that is still in the car, the bidders can step up on this unit, okay? Let's go down here. I'm going to pick another one here. Let's look for a Mercedes. Let's just look at this one here. Okay, here's an '08 Mercedes. It's got 124,000 miles on it. Is this one that you're going to try to keep? Probably not, right? So, all right, let's take a quick look at the additional photos. All right, this one has a peeling roof trim. It's got a rip in the seat. It's got a rip there on the front door panel. Sun visors are broken and missing. Okay, when we scroll down and look, there's 2 open recalls, but the engine drives well. The transmission shifts okay. Looks like it needs 3 tires, okay. Green lights here for the dashboard, and there's no odors. All right, so this car books out at $5,200. What would you take this in trade-in for? 4 grand? Okay, what would you be happy to get for it selling as is at the auction? 45 or 5 grand? All right, let's see what this one brought. This one sold for $5,900, so about $1,000 more than what you had hoped to get for it, okay? Again, when we broadcast the life, we can reduce the risk. When we do that, the bidders are willing to pay more for your car, okay? Now, why don't you just go ahead and pick one here? We'll scroll down here and just take a look. All right, let's go ahead and look at this. Oh, let's take a look at this at 2015 Mercedes with about 87,000 miles on it. Okay, 86,000, excuse me. And as soon as the pictures load, we'll take a quick look. Let's take a look at the additional photos on this unit. So there's a heavy scratch in the front door. And there's also a scratch in the front seat, so it looks like the seat's worn out. That's all we've got for this Mercedes. Go ahead and help me appraise this one. No frame damage. The engine's good. Transmission's good. It does have a code for misfiring. Okay. Looks like the tires are good here. There's no spare. No odors. No dash lights. Okay. This car books at $47,000. What would you take this in for? All right, is this something you would keep or is this something you would send on downstream? All right, well, let's take a look and see what this one sold for here. This one sold for $40,000, okay? Now, if you'll take a look at a couple of best practices here, I want you to notice there's a reserve met here at the bottom. This is letting you know that the seller has put a reserve price. We recommend that you put the least amount you're willing to take for the car, not what you think it's worth. The earlier in the auction that reserve met appears, the more confidence the bidders have that they're going to own this car. Let's say, for example, they're using a flooring company and they know how much they have to spend. They're willing to hit this car 2 or 3 or 4 more times. Okay. Also, over to the right, you'll see that there is a hot seller ribbon. Now, hot seller ribbon is like lane placement on the online auction. This is given to dealers that are selling 65% or more of the cars that have bids on them. Okay. Now, not every car is going to break the bank, obviously, but we're trying to create an environment where every car will do well. And what we are going to do well with are the cars that have life left in them. What we're not going to do well with are the cars that are in-ops, that have rod knocks, that have slipping trannies, okay? When we reduce the risk to buyers, once again, then the buyers can pay more for your car. So let's go up here. I just want to log into another buyer here and just show you kind of what was happening last week. This is Adam Messick. He's one of our Fresno Mercedes-Benz dealers, and he's given us permission to share this with you here. He sells a lot of cars with us. Let me go down here and find a car that he did last week. Here, this '09 Pontiac. Don't take a look at what it sold for. Let's open this one up. Now, this car is an '09 Pontiac, and it's got 84,000 miles on it. When we take a quick look at the additional photos, I apologize, the site's taking a little longer here. We are having a current auction, so the cars are loading up here, and it's a little slower than normal. But this car has great life left in it. Okay, green checks all the way down, one open recall, scratches on the quarter panel, side mirror is broken, the front bumper has a scratch, the rear door has a scratch, the headlights are oxidized. Okay, no prior paint work, the tires are good and matching. Looks like it's got some rips and tears on the interior. There's a tire light that's on. The headline is present, and it does smell like smoke, okay? Now, this car books for, give me just a second for that to load. All right, so this car books apologize for the delay here. Give me just 1 second for it to load up. See if we can get back to it this way. And we were looking at the Pontiac, right? It was down here. Okay, this car books for $8,000, and let's see what it sold for. This one sold for 15.6. Okay, now that is amazing, right? It went about for 5,000 over his cost, right? So he made about $5,000 just on that car alone. Again, when we disclose what's wrong with the cars, the bidders know what they have to spend to fix it. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at another car down here. I wanted to show you also. Let me take a look and see. It's going to be a 2014 Camaro. I don't think it was that far back. There it is. All right, let's take a look at this car. All right, so here's a 2014 Camaro with 90,000 miles on them. Let's take a look at the additional photos here. Okay, you'll see that it's got a code pending here for engine misfire. It's got a scratch on the side mirror. It's got headlamps that are chipped, a fender that's scuffed, a front door that has a scuff on it, a chip in the headlight there. It's also got a scuff in the front door, a ding in the quarter panel, scratch on the bumper, chipped front door, chipped quarter panel, broken bumper, heavy scratch, gouged wheel there, scuffed side view mirror, cracked windshield, paintwork on the door, paintwork on the quarter panel, a worn front seat, another front seat that's worn, steering wheel's worn out just a little bit, more curb damage, aftermarket wheels, excuse me, and aftermarket exhaust. All right, it also has the cats present. Okay, all right, so let's close that up. When we take a look, it does have an open recall. Now this drives well and shifts well. The engine runs solid. Okay, we looked at all of this. We see it needs a couple of tires. Has a dash light, a check engine light is on. Does have aftermarket wheels and exhaust. The cats are present. Okay, so this will take a little bit to get through your shop, right? Maybe a couple grand. So you're probably not going to keep it. What would you be happy to take this in for? 10,000. Okay, you'd be happy to get 11.5 for it. All right, well, let's see what this one brought. Adam sold this one for 92. All right, so again, he brought it in for $7,000, so he made $2,200 on this. So although it was pretty far back a book, he was able to generate quite a bit of profit because we exposed the skeletons. The bidders stepped up to this car, and he had a low reserve of $7,000. Okay, now let me take you back up here to the top of this site here. I want you to see where you can actually watch the live auction. When you click this, currently there is a live auction going on. So I want you to notice a couple of things here. When we watch the live auction, we can see what the cars are doing. Okay. Now we advise people log in about 4:50 to watch the live auction. They're going to be able to see the faces flipping back and forth. This really gives it a live auction feel. And so you can see who's outbidding who, and you can see who's stepping up on your cars. Of course, we're not going to do well with everything, but we are going to do well with the cars that have life left in them, as I've shown you. Another thing that there's a big difference to us between major mechanical and reconditioning. Okay, major mechanical consists of maybe a slipping transmission or a slight knocking in the engine. We're not going to do well with those cars. We're also not going to do well with junk cars, in-ops, anything with a branded title. All right, but we are going to do well with cars that have life left in them. All right, so one other thing I wanted to show you here, I wanted to show you the cell nets. Okay, and since there's a current auction going on, let's look back to see what Adam did for the month of March. And that'll pull up in just a second here. All right, so the first thing I want you to notice here, we got the seller, we've got information about where to send the title and the documents to. Now, when a car sells, you'll send us the title. We're going to send a payment directly to you. You don't have to wait for independent dealers. You certainly don't have to chase any dealers. We're also going to arrange transportation for all these cars, so you're not going to have independent dealers coming onto your lot. This shows you the sold amount is the high bid. There's no sell fee and there's no inspection fee. So what you receive is the high bid amount. Now, the other nice thing about this, your cell nets, you don't have to wait for an auction to close. You don't have to wait for somebody to call you back. You can go on here and get these yourself. But I want you to notice how far away these buyers are. He's in Fresno, and he actually has buyers all the way up and down the state. Okay, Monterey Park, Colton, Sacramento, all the way down to San Marcos, National City, all the way down to San Diego and beyond. Okay, so you've got a much broader radius of where your bidders are coming from than just the 5 or 10 guys that maybe drove 20 miles to stand in the auction with you, okay, or with the cars. Okay, every time you run a car through the lane that still has life left in it, you actually are leaving money on the table. Okay, now let me explain the process of what most of my dealers do. We send out inspectors Thursday through Monday. You let me know which day is good for you. We can come out the same day each week. We can come out a couple of times a week if that helps. I'm going to reach out to you and ask you for a car count, and then we're going to do the rest. Okay, for example, let's say your cars get inspected on Saturday. We're going to run them on Monday, and we want you to sell anything that makes sense. Anything that doesn't make sense, of course, you can still run it downstream at whatever auction you normally would use. Okay, we pay you when you get the documents, as I said, and we're insured by IAI, which is the largest insurance auction in the country. So this is like having your own auction right here on your PC. You can look at the bids, you can counter the bids, you can print your cell nets, you can sell the cars. There's no downside to the online auction, and it really costs you nothing. So you just continue to stock the shelves, and we're going to continue to register the buyers. We are the fastest online auction in California, the fastest growing online auction in California, and we're listing anywhere from 1,400 to 1,700 cars a week. Okay, this is 100% value add to your store, and we've impacted more UCM's paychecks than any other auction around. All right, so Craig, tell me, what do you think about the idea? Okay, great. So how many cars do you have, and when's a good day for me to come out and start the inspections? Thursday? Great, I'll get them scheduled out. And by the way, do you have any frontline units you want me to go ahead and inspect for you at no charge as well? We can get them started for you and get those on our Tuesday sale. Very good. Thank you so much for your time, Craig.